Shanti and Meredith, thank you for that powerful conversation because what you said was 100% completely true. And Nikki, you're so right. You have to make sure you have your mask on before you put it on others and make sure to save yourself first, okay? You can't be your best self unless you save yourself first. And launching your career can be a difficult process. So before you get your grind right, you get your mind right. Okay. Don't be listening to LLC Twitter saying, oh, you got to sleep 1 or 2 hours a day and, get those multiple streams. No, make sure you take care of yourself first. All right. So make sure you get your grind right before you get your mind right. And now let's talk about launching your career. So it's a difficult process. And I've been there. Every alum has been there. But you have resources like Kathy Johnson and Tracy Lawrence of the Launch Career Activation Program who will not let you walk through this alone. So in this presentation, you'll learn how to become a top tier job candidate. So let's introduce our presenters, Kathy Johnson and Tracy Lawrence.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Great. Good to see everyone. Well, actually, we can't see you, but I guess you can see us. So yeah, we are going to be here with you throughout the year, certainly with the seniors. And our job is to just kind of help you through the process. We're here for everything from what should I wear to like, how do I do a resume? Any questions that come up, we are here. So we have a quick presentation overview. Can we pull it up? Who's pulling it up? If not, Kathy, who was going to be?
Nope.
Yeah, I thought somebody was sharing.
Yeah,
okay. I can try to share. Yeah, I'm not able to share.
Hang on 1 second.
Okay, sorry. I thought somebody else was sharing.
Hang on 1 second.
All right. Well, while Kathy is working on that, I'll give you a quick overview on who we are. So my name is Tracy Lawrence. The firm is the Lawrence Advisory. I am a human capital consultant. And what that means is that I work with companies, a lot of the partner companies with Emma Bowen, on executive recruiting, leadership development. I do a lot of coaching for senior level people in the industry. And my background is coming from the television industry. So before I made a transition into doing this, I was general manager of a cable television network called the Fox Family Channel, which was later sold to Disney. And I started this business about 11 years. And we've been working with Emma Bowen for about 3 years on what's known as the Launch Career Activation Program. So we focus on seniors and we stay with you throughout the year. And we help you preparing for the job interview process. And we stay with you all year long until you actually land that job. And sometimes even after graduation. Kathy, do you want to say a word about yourself?
Oh, okay. I was working on the screen sharing.
Oh, sorry.
Kathy Johnson, Director of Operations at the Lawrence Advisory, and I am actively engaged in the Launch Mentoring Program and also available to you for resume review, cover letter review, also interview practicing and all of that. I also have a background in the media industry and have been working with the Lawrence Advisory for the last 4 years.
Great. So it looks like I might be able to share, but
okay.
Yeah, I'm having trouble sharing. So while Kathy's working on that, I'll just kind of talk you through what we wanted to talk about. So the job interview process can be tricky, right? I wanted to share quotes from, so I've interviewed thousands of people through the years, and I wanted to start with, here we go. Now we have our presentation. Okay. So let's move on to like page 3, I think. Okay, we've already gone through that. Let's go one more page. So my favorite interview moments. Yes, somebody actually did tell me, I'm sitting in my hot tub while I'm talking to you. I don't usually talk to companies this small. I'm making an exception for you. And then my favorite guy was a couple of years ago when I told him he wasn't getting the job. He said, okay, I'll call you every Friday to see where you are with this search and if anything has changed. And he did. He called me every Friday, even though he was nowhere near qualified for the job, until I finally had to tell him, like, yo, you need to stop. And then, wow, there are a lot of women working at that company. So the things that you say in interviews, they stay with you. And I'm a recruiter. I remember who said all of these things. I will be highly unlikely to continue contact with them. On the other hand, if you handle yourself with grace, and professionalism, even if you don't get the job, sometimes you can make a lasting connection or relationship that can benefit you in the future. So we talk a lot with people about just how you're showing up, right, for your job interview. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so when we talk about interviewing for jobs, the word that comes up is fear, right? What are some of the things that we are afraid of? Let's look at the next slide. Right, biggest fears. I won't get a job, right? My resume is not good enough. I'm going to bomb the interview. I don't know what I want to do. Or I won't I hear this a lot actually, I won't like the job I end up getting. So psychologically, what happens to people when they're interviewing for jobs, especially young people, is they're so focused on showing up in the right way and whether the person that they're interviewing will like them or what is the right way to do things, that they can sometimes lose track of who they really are, right? And bringing their full self and being able to kind of show who you really are and what's special about you can often be what makes the difference. Let's go to the next slide. Great. So here are the facts with job hunting. And feel free to participate if you want to do, I think they can chat. So let's look at the facts. Next slide. So how long do you think it takes a typical interviewer to make up their mind about hiring you? Let's move on to the next slide. The answer is 5 minutes. So, and I know when I interview people, I always know in 5 minutes whether they're going to be at least a legitimate candidate. So you have 5 minutes to make a connection with the person when you walk in or whether you're on Zoom, right? So they're looking at your body language. Are you looking at them? Are you looking them in the eye? How are you conducting yourself? And are you showing up in a genuine way that indicates that you're really interested? Next slide. The length of time to make a decision will also depend on 3 key things, right? The experience of the interviewer. So a lot of times when we go interview for jobs, we make the assumption that the person interviewing us is really good at interviewing and knows exactly what they're looking for. So again, we're focused on answering their questions. The truth is most people have no training in interviewing. And so a lot of times you may walk into a job interview and what question do they ask? So tell me about yourself. So you've got to know how to show up and what it is that you want to get out of that meeting before you get there. A key statistically, a key factor in whether you get called back is the order of applicants in the schedule. So if you're doing an interview on campus and you are number 15 out of 15, you're going to be less likely to get a call back. You want to be somewhere in the middle. And then another factor in terms of whether you get a callback or whether you get a job is the level of interview structure. So people who, as I mentioned, a lot of times people are not trained in interviewing people. So you walk in and they say, oh, tell me about yourself. They haven't really thought through what it is that they want to get out of their conversation with you. So you end up with a very unstructured interview. Those tend to be, when you have an interview like that, you tend to be less likely to get the job, right? A person needs to have thought through what it is they want to find out about you before you connect with them. So these are some of the things that we will be working with you on as we prepare you to go into these interviews. Let's look at the next slide. So what is the deciding factor in extending a job offer? Next slide. Trust. So they're looking at your experience, your resume, the answers to the questions, but really what all of those things come down to is, can I trust you? I can trust you because you went to a university that I'm familiar with and I trust their judgment. I can trust you because you had internships at organizations that I know are selective. So I trust that. I can trust you because I like the things that you're saying. You went to a high school that I recognize or that I also went to, right? So all of these questions are coming down to kind of looking for reasons that I can trust you. Next slide. Reasons for not hiring. Why would you not get a job? In the entertainment industry, number one is number one. You are not interested. So I always tell people in the entertainment industry, these jobs are in high demand and they want to know when you come to talk to them that you really want that job because there are 10 other people lined up who really want that job, right? Especially if you're interviewing at a high profile place. Not prepared. Have you done your basic research? Do you know about the company? Do you know about the job? Have you thought it through? No relevant experience. When you're young, you can get away with that a little bit. All of you guys will be bringing summer internships thanks to Emma Bowen. So all the Emma Bowen fellows show up with pretty good experience. Poor interviewing skills. So that's something that we will work with you on. And then bias and cultural fit. Cultural fit and bias kind of go hand in hand, right? People bring and we're going to talk about different types of bias, but people will bring their own preconceived notions into these interviews. Another reason why it's really important to know what it is that you're trying to communicate about yourself. Let's move on to the next slide. So types of bias, confirmation bias, which is the tendency to process information by looking for or interpreting information that's consistent with one's existing beliefs. So there's a lot of studies that show, for example, if, with investment firms, for example, when they're making a decision on whether to invest in an entrepreneur, the number one factor that comes into play statistically is I'm going to invest in somebody that went to the same school that I went to. That also is a factor in the failure of those investments, by the way. But I went to Harvard, you went to Harvard, you're cool, I'm going to give you $1 million. Affinity bias, we look for people who are similar to us. Perception bias, forming stereotypes about specific groups of people. And then there's the halo effect. When we like someone, then, when that first 5 minutes, right, the 5 minutes that you have, once I've decided that I like you, even if you stumble, I'm going to kind of give you a little grace period. Let's look at the next slide. So how long will you be in your first job out of college? Let's move forward. So statistically, over 50% of recent grads age 18 to 24 will leave their jobs within 1 year. So it's also really important when you're going through this job search to keep in mind, this is not a commitment for the rest of your life. This is a commitment to start your career and learn something. And oftentimes, what you learn is what you don't want to do. And that's okay. But you want to have thought this through. When I interview people, say 10 years out of college, one of the things that I always do is ask them, tell me your story. So what did you think you wanted to do if I had spoken with you as a senior in college? And then what did you learn along the way that has led to where you are today, right? And what you want to do is just be very thoughtful, self-reflective, make sure that every move you make, that you're learning something in that process. Let's look at the next slide. And what makes a great candidate? Again, going back to this industry, the best candidate really wants the job. You've got relevant work or volunteer experience. You've got a resume that tells a story. Now, a story can be, hey, my first couple of internships were in marketing. I worked in marketing, but now I realize that I want to be a journalist. And so I've pivoted. That's a perfectly fine story. You don't have to have done the exact job that you're interviewing for, but you do have to have a reason and an explanation for why you are where you are. That perfect candidate interviews well, brings a certain amount of self-awareness and a strong understanding of the firm that they're interviewing with and its culture. Let's move on. So we are here to help you become a great candidate. That's the purpose of the Launch program. Next slide. So our goal is helping you find the right career path based on your passion, your talent, and then we look and encourage you to look at your personality and your work style. Next slide. 3 phases of our process. The first will be self-assessment. We typically use the Enneagram assessment, which is a lot of fun. It's a test that you take online, and then we'll take you through a workshop on how to interpret your results. So we look at your personality and implications of your personality on your work style, and then help you to develop what your authentic story is. Let's look at the next slide, which will be phase 2. In January, we will do a job hunting boot camp. So that will be typically over 2 days, and will probably be virtual. We look at self-assessment. We will cover topics like resume and cover letters, interviewing skills, how to work with LinkedIn, self-branding, networking, and then we have panel discussions. This past year, we had a great panel with past Imabon fellows who could really share their experiences. They were all 1 year out of school and were in their first job. And so it was just great to hear the experiences they had and see them being able to share that with people coming right behind them. Next slide. Phase 3 is mentoring. All seniors will be paired with a mentor, and that mentor will be a person who is out in the working world, working in the entertainment and media space. And we try to match you with someone that's doing something similar to what you want to do. You will work with that mentor at once a month over a period of 5 months. In our experience in watching these relationships develop, first of all, they're incredibly valuable. That's a relationship that you'll have at the end of the program that you can continue. But it is very important for you as the student to learn to be proactive and take initiative. When you are interacting with that person, it's okay to show up with questions, not fully knowing which direction you want to go in or needing answers to questions, but we do want you to get used to being proactive with that person. Questions to contemplate as you get ready for those mentoring sessions. Where do you want to be in 5 years, 10 years? And again, that is going to change over time, but you want to start with a goal and then you edit the goal, right? You change it over time. Where are your passions? Why have you chosen that direction? And then what are your unique skills, talents, and perspectives? So show up ready with questions, but don't feel pressure to show up perfect. That person is doing this, volunteering to work with you because they want to help, right? They want to be of support to you. Next slide. And then phase 4 will be your career plan and job hunting strategy. So we will go with you to develop your target companies, who are the contacts within the target companies, do your research, and then again, your monthly coaching will help you along that process. Next slide. And then execution. We want you to get out there and get it done. So again, we are there for you, and we are on demand, right? So if you have any questions separate from your mentoring, you can just email us and we'll jump on the phone with you. Everything, all questions big and small. And I want to make sure that we have time. If there are any questions, I think we only have a couple more minutes, but if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat.